With the checkered flag dropping for the 2022 Rolex 24, I decided now would be the best time to soak in the last drops of victory and defeat, the best time to look at the participants through the eyes of history, and more specifically, the participants with a NASCAR affiliation. There have been plenty of drivers that have wanted to check off one of the biggest items off the bucket list in motorsports, and that being the Rolex 24. So let's start off with Danica Patrick. While Patrick never raced in the Rolex 24 during her NASCAR stint, she did race in it during her IndyCar years. Beginning in 2005, Patrick raced with Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing, alongside forgotten underdog Victor Mera in the 17 and veterans Buddy Rice and Kenny Brack in the 15. In the 16 Honda, Patrick was able to finish 12th in the standings and win Rookie of the Year, which earned her a seat in the next year's 24 Hours of Daytona. She would drive for the Callaway Gold-sponsored Howard Boss Motorsports Pontiac in the DP class, which means that she would not only be able to contend for a class win, but an overall win as well. She would be paired up alongside Dutchman Jan Lemmers and three-time Le Mans winner Alan McNish. She would also be paired up alongside Rusty Wallace. While Wallace would do TV work throughout 2006 for IndyCar, he still had the racing bug left in him after his retirement years from NASCAR at the end of 2005. He had never raced at the 24 Hours of Daytona, thus the stars aligned well. Overall, the team ran up front and inside the top 10 after starting 16th. They would even lead 8 laps on the day, though unfortunately overheating issues would push them down to 50th overall when all was said and done. Patrick would try again in 2009 for Childress Howard Motorsports, this time a proven IndyCar winner for Andretti Green, alongside Casey Mears, who we'll talk about later, Andy Wallace, no affiliation to Rusty, and Rob Finlay. She would again contend for the overall win, and while the team started 18th and didn't lead a single lap all day, they were able to finish the job and finish 8th. Another driver, also an ex-open-wheel racer that raced in the Rolex 24, was Tony Stewart. While Stewart's overall tenure at Daytona was salt and pepper in 2002 and 2004 to 2007, his best finish came in 2005, where his team nearly took the overall win. He would be paired up with the previously mentioned Jan Lemmers and Andy Wallace in the Citgo Howard Boss Motorsports Pontiac, where the team would start 6th. They quickly worked their way up to the front and led 248 laps on the day, second most, but would come up just short, finishing 3rd overall and 3rd in class. His last attempt was in 2007, curiously in a Porsche, where he would finish 48th overall and 24th in class. An interesting driver that raced in the 24 Hours of Daytona was Paul Menard. Menard raced in 2003 and 2004, way before he was even an Xfinity Series regular. In 2003, in a Chevrolet Corvette, he would end up finishing 6th in class and improved the following year, finishing 4th in class in a Porsche. In the final year of his Roush Yates racing stint, and 1 year before he would collect his sole NASCAR win in 2010, Menard was paired alongside Antonio Garcia, Darren Manning, and Buddy Rice for Spirit of Daytona Racing. In a Menard's Coyote CC/09 Porsche, Paul would end up finishing in the DP class, attempting to contend for the overall win. Unfortunately, he would finish in the upper 30s overall and 13th in his class with almost no luck whatsoever. Someone who had luck and raced in a number of motorsports from IndyCar to Bathurst to NASCAR was the son of Aldo Andretti, older brother of Adam Andretti, and nephew of Mario Andretti, none other than the late John Andretti. In 1989, Andretti drove for the Miller High Life/BF Goodrich Porsche 962 to victory in the Rolex 24 Hours at Daytona, along with co-drivers Bob Wallach and Derek Bell. While he would sporadically drive an IMSA up until the late 90s, this still remains his crowning achievement in his tenure there. Many in NASCAR know how good Mark Martin was at road courses, so it shouldn't surprise you that the kid won in the number 70 Mustang for the GTS-1 class and finished 3rd overall alongside Tommy Kendall, Paul Newman, and Mike Brockman in the 1995 edition. It still is one of the most notable accomplishments, not just for Mark Martin, but his team owner, Jack Roush. One of the more somber Rolex appearances was that of Dale Earnhardt. Towards the end of his career, Earnhardt began to take a more methodical approach and began to show an interest in racing other motorsport series, especially IMSA. He also wanted to race with his son Dale Earnhardt Jr. as much as he could, and vice versa, hence why Little E raced at Japan in an exhibition race with his father a few years earlier. Earnhardt was the talk of the town heading into the 24 Hours of Daytona, and while his son would be his teammate in the full factory-supported Corvette Racing No. 3, still racing today by the way, he would also be paired with alongside Andy Pilgrim and Kelly Collins. They would finish 4th overall, just outside the podium, but 2nd in class. 1 month later, and the worst happened. It was none other than the 2001 24 Hours of Daytona that Dale Earnhardt participated in, just 1 month shy of his death. Nonetheless, Earnhardt Jr. would go on to race again in 2004, paired with Andy Wallace and Tony Stewart, finishing 3rd in class and 5th overall. I mentioned Casey Mears raced with Danica Patrick in her 2nd start, but in her 1st start, Mears would win the entire thing, alongside 6-time IndyCar champion Scott Dixon and the great Dan Wheldon. Kurt Busch also raced in 2008 for Penske Taylor Racing, finishing 3rd overall alongside Elio Castroneves and Ryan Briscoe, 2 titans of IndyCar. Castroneves would also win the 2022 edition and is the latest winner as of the time of recording. So let's talk about 2015's set of overall winners with the Chip Ganassi Racing Ford. Scott Dixon won it again for the team, who he won it with in 2006, as well as 2013 Indy 500 winner Tony Kanaan. The driver who won the 2010 Daytona 500 and had raced in the 24 Hours of Daytona since that same year, Jamie McMurray, also won, as well as 2014 participant and current defending Series Cup champion Kyle Larson. While McMurray's win doesn't get talked about as much as it should, this race vindicated any doubts that many had about Kyle Larson's superstar-like talent. Since then, many look back and use the win to prove his well-versed abilities. In 2007, 35-year-old 4-time champion and 75-time NASCAR Cup winner Jeff Gordon finished 3rd overall for Wayne Taylor Racing. 10 years later, a now semi-retired 93-time winner and 45-year-old Fox analyst, Gordon drove again for the Wayne Taylor Racing Cadillac, teaming up with Jordan and Ricky Taylor and Max Angelelli to win the entire thing as well. This would be the last motorsports event the NASCAR Hall of Famer would enter, and it would be a fitting send-off when all was said and done. Scott Pruitt retired after the 2018 Rolex 24 race. He won the overall title at the event 5 times, 1994, 2007, 2008, 2011, and 2013. Pruitt only had 40 starts in the NASCAR Cup Series for teams like PPI Motorsports and Chip Ganassi. He did amass 3 top 5 finishes at either Sonoma or Watkins Glen, which is why he was the road course ringer for CGR. In 2011, the Racers Group Porsche 997 GT3 Cup car finished 12th overall with Stephen Berthoud, Brendan Gaughan, Wolf Hensler, Andy Lally, and Spencer Pumpelly, the last 2 of which have both recently made NASCAR Xfinity Series starts. Gaughan raced again in 2018 for Bar 1 Motorsports with no luck, finishing 42nd overall out of 50 cars. However, he would reunite with the Daytona road course in his last season in NASCAR in 2020. While Beard Motorsports only ran and only had restrictor plate track cars, they made an exception running for the then much anticipated Daytona road course race in the NASCAR Cup Series. This race would replace Watkins Glen, which was canceled at the time for pandemic reasons. They would finish 39th out of 39 cars, and Gaughan would retire completely 2 races and 3 months later. But it still is a cool tidbit of history to look back at. Ty Majeski, Cole Custer, Haley Deegan, and Chase Briscoe have all made separate appearances in the Roar Before the 24 Michelin Pilot Challenge, as has Austin Cindric. Cindric in particular originally wanted to pursue a sports car career before making the switch to NASCAR. He still races there, here, and there at the Rolex 24. In 2017, in a Lexus, he would finish 14th in class. In the LMP2 class, second to the top, he would finish 6th for JDC Miller Motorsports the following year. In 2019, he would race for Aim Vasser Sullivan, reuniting with Lexus, improving to a 5th. While he would skip the 2020 and 2021 event respectively, he would return for the 2022 season for Proton USA in a Mercedes AMG GT3. Justin Marks raced in a Lamborghini Huracan in 2016, finishing 8th in class, and in a BMW the next year he would finish 8th. From 2018 to 2019, he raced in the number 93 Michael Shank Racing Acura in 2018, and the number 86 team with AJ Allmendinger in 2019, where he finished 4th in class. Speaking of Allmendinger, he has had a storied past with IMSA. From 2006, where he finished 2nd, to his overall win in 2012, to his last race so far in 2021, where he finished 4th overall. Across an Acura, Ford, Lexus, and Ligier, his tenure would require a video in and of itself. And the same goes for Motorsports Ace, who has Rolex 24 overall wins in 2007, 2008, and 2013 with Chip Ganassi Racing, Juan Pablo Montoya. There are also some recent examples of NASCAR drivers participating in the Rolex 24, perhaps some you have heard of. Fresh off his 2nd championship in 2019, Kyle Busch decided to race in the 2020 edition of the Rolex 24. In the number 14 Aim Vasser Sullivan Lexus RCF GT3, he'd be teamed up with Jack Hawksworth, Parker Chase, and Michael D. Quisetta. Because he was in a GTD class, he was well off the pace of the leaders and would only finish 26th overall. In class, he would finish a distant 9th. Busch, however, is one of the most adventurous drivers in terms of trying different motorsports, and the same goes for the 2020 champion and the most popular driver, Chase Elliott. In 2021, Elliott would drive for the same make that took Jeff Gordon to his Rolex 24 win, Whelen Engineering Racing and their Cadillac. Alongside Mike Conway, Pippa Durrani, and Felipe Nasser, the quartet would finish 8th overall and 6th in class. For some, Elliott was considered the proverbial favorite, seeing how he is good at road courses, and for the most part, he proved well against the titans of the motorsports world. 2021 also saw former Daytona 500 winner Austin Dillon compete, driving in the number 51 RWR Eurasia Leger LMP2 with Sally Olek, Cody Ware, and Sven Muller. The team finished an impressive 10th overall, 4th in class, and was certainly not talked about enough as one might. Inadvertently, this ended up helping Austin Dillon break the top 15 bubble that plagued him at road courses in the Cup Series, and it also helped Cody Ware earn some praises from his closest competitors. Finally, there's Jimmie Johnson. Johnson has attempted the Rolex 24 in 2004, 05, 07, 08, 09, 10, 11, 21, and 22, with the best finish of 2nd in 2005, 2008, and 2021. The number 48 Ally Cadillac DPI in 2022 consisted of Mike Rockenfeller, Kamui Kobayashi, and Jose Maria Lopez. The 48 led for much of the early portion, but during Johnson's stint late in the night, issues plagued the team, putting them over 20 laps down, 11th overall, and 5th in class. So with that, there is some of the biggest stars with NASCAR connections. To some of the most successful put against a 24-hour clock to let fate decide the results. What are some NASCAR drivers you've enjoyed racing in the Rolex 24? And what are some drivers you want to see in the race? Let me know in the comments below. Until next time, this has been the news. I'll see you.